Alrighty, welcome back to part two of our discussion on the Transcontinental Railroad. If you take a look here at this timeline, it's a great representation of where we left off in the article. Um, we started off the article with when the first actual railroad or steam locomotive was actually created in Baltimore. And we looked at a map of where Maryland, where Baltimore is located, and where that little stretch of railroad was. And then we got into the gold rush and 1848, and then in the middle here between 1848 and 1860, this time period of the 1850s, we got into the idea of populations, cities began growing, right? Um, and a need for more railroad, a need for shipping goods and services and people east and west easier. And so throughout the 1850s, this guy here, Theodore Judah, is really getting this idea going on in his head with his team about creating a railroad that extends past, if you recall, the city of Omaha, Nebraska, and we would call that the Transcontinental Railroad. And what we read last was this bit that in 1862, Lincoln is listening to Mr. Theodore Judah give a talk about why the country is in need of these railroads. He gave a talk about his plan. The Union and Central Pacific Railroads are going to work together to build this railroad, and they're going to get it done by this time. And Mr. Lincoln says, okay, Mr. Judah, I like your maps. I like your plan. Let's go ahead and sign that Pacific Railroad Act of 1862 so the government can give you guys some money to get this railroad built for our country. So part two today is going to be talking about, again, key details, and not just any old key details, right? Key details that have some sort of time order presence, dates, times such as 3 weeks later or several months later or in the 1830s. And then we can start the majority of our details that we write down with some sequence words of our own: first, next, then, and finally. Kind of as we did in part one, where we used first, another reason, and finally. I did not attach a sequence word to each one of those sentences because of the time order dates that are present at the beginning of those details. Okay, so this go around will be similar. We have the first detail, and again, please pause this video and listen to and read aloud the last portion of our passage, pages 18 and 19 of Transcontinental Railroad. Okay. The first key detail, welcome back. First key detail is that in 1869, the railroad was completed years ahead of schedule. In 1876, that's when we thought that the Transcontinental Railroad was going to be completed. But in actuality, it was created 7 years early in 1869. And so the detail presented here is the Transcontinental Railroad was completed with a golden spike in 1869, years ahead of schedule. This is a summary of a few details tucked into this section from paragraphs 1 and 2. So as I am scanning and looking for any other key words, on the big day, this phrase is connected to we are going to complete the Transcontinental Railroad with a golden spike hammered right into the last section of track located on Promontory Point or Promontory Summit. This was the big connecting point for the Union and Central Pacific Railroads. And you ask yourself, why did this company here, the Central Pacific, create such a short line of track while the Union Pacific created such a long stretch of track? And these little shady thingies in the background, yep, we call those mountains, might give you an answer to that question. But in all, I'm pretty sure Theodore Judah's idea of a competition between these two companies is possibly what led to the development of the Transcontinental Railroad so early. So on the big day, we had this golden spike hammered in, and now we can go ahead and take a look at the last two paragraphs of our passage. Okay, less than a week after the last rail was laid, train service began. The trip from New York to San Francisco took about a week and cost far less than the journeys by sea or across land. By sea, just like our good friends Jack and Praiseworthy from the Great Horn Spoon, they went by sea, and many others took the Oregon/Overland Trail to the west coast of the United States. Then we have some pricing. We have some other benefits of what happened because the railroad, more settlers rode the trains west on their journey to building new homes, farms, and communities. What a great line that is. A great concluding line. Transcontinental Railroad changed the nation, just as we hinted at in our main idea from part one. The Transcontinental was built because we wanted to move people and goods east and west with ease, right? We have now linked east with west, and this overall feeling of Americans being a part of citizens of the United States. All of a sudden, the country doesn't seem so big anymore because of the speed of travel. So, time order. What are we going to do? We have the word first. I'm thinking of an appropriate sequence word to include here, sort of in our last detail that we will write. Less than a week after the rail was laid. I want to work with less than a week. I like that chronological sequencing of words there, that phrase, less than a week. Well, less than a week after that fateful day on May 10th, 1869, right? So we're talking not even May 17th yet. The first train has taken off. The first east to west, west to east travel took place. So finally, comma, less than a week later, the first Transcontinental got that? Travel took place by rail. Right? And another style of sequence word to be used is to answer the question, well, so what? What does that mean? Finally, less than a week later, then we have first. Well, what does it mean for the country? The first transcontinental travel took place by rail. Well, what that means to me is as a result. Right? That's a great way to begin a conclusion sentence. As a result. Well, what happened because of that travel, right? The nation changed forever. And how did it change forever? Citizens began to, or Americans became to feel that they were citizens of the United States, and more settlers rode the trains west. The nation changed forever. More individuals, groups, people, families moved west to build homes, farms, and communities. Individuals moved west to build homes, farms, and communities. Feeling like citizens of the greater United States of America. Okay, so it's really important that when you are underlining key details, remember this whole passage is filled with details. It wouldn't be as interesting as it is if it wasn't for the details. It wouldn't be as educational as it is if it wasn't for all of the details. But the purpose of our details, is to gather a main idea of why the Transcontinental Railroad was built and what happened because of it. And so we wanted to gather those details while also looking for dates, time order words that can help us keep track of something like this Transcontinental Railroad timeline that we have here. So, a main idea. The Transcontinental Railroad was completed with the Golden Spike, years ahead of schedule. The first transcontinental travel took place. The nation changed forever. The West becomes more populated, and citizens are feeling like Americans are feeling like citizens of the United States of America. So, which of the following best explains why more people rode trains west, right? Will be the question that you answer here at the bottom. But a main idea. What is a main idea that you can create by using the key details that we have put in sequence for the Transcontinental Railroad? All right, so this was part 2. I'm leaving the main idea to you all. And please let us know if you have any questions or concerns. All right, that concludes part 2 of the building of the Transcontinental Railroad.